Good morning, everyone. It's Monday morning. Hope everyone had a great Halloween. Got all their sugar candy in, and the little kids and everything. I know everyone's kind of popping on in here. We'll give everybody a minute to kind of get situated here, get your coffee, and everything. If you haven't attended one of these before, it's very casual. We'll say if you have any questions, you can put it in the chat. And first off, let me introduce our guest here. We got Tom Durezzo, Director of Product Management. Tom, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Dave. Yeah, excited
Thanks.
to talk about what we've done and then some of the things that we've got planned for next year.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah. And this is going to be, I believe, the final coffee talk of this year as we get into to December. We'll kickstart everything again, be soon enough, it'll be January, and we'll be talking about 2026. But yeah, I think we'll take a look before we go into 2026. I know everyone wants to, what do we got planned for, the future and everything. But why don't we go and start off, Tom, by kind of talking about, 2025, maybe a quick review because we had a lot going on in 2025 and a major rollover, right, from our pro
We
dashboard.
did, yeah. When I think back on 2025, for me, the big thing was the switch to the new Pro dashboard. It's something we'd been planning for a long time. We'd had the new Pro dashboard out for people to test drive and try it out. We got some feedback, and at the end actually of 2024, so a year ago,
Right.
we started moving people over. And when we say move people over, what that meant was we started by having people, when they logged in, go to the new Pro dashboard, but there was always a button that took them back to the old Pro dashboard. And so we started that process, but at some point, we realized we needed to just cut off the old Pro dashboard, and everybody just needed to go to the new Pro dashboard because it was too expensive to have two dashboards, and we really wanted to take people into the future, right? We know it's a little bit painful. We know that people are comfortable with a certain way of doing things, and so moving people over to a new way of doing things is always something that takes a little bit of thoughtfulness. And so we actually spent half the year of 2025 sort of moving people over, and then letting people know that the old Pro dashboard was going away.
Yeah, I think it's
So
human nature, right, Tom? I mean, I know
yeah.
it seemed like so long, and I got tired of like telling people, well, it's gonna be that date where we pull the yo rug because we gave plenty of time, but there's always that when you're changing to something new, that trepidation. And I think just there was gonna be a certain portion that we had to go all the way to the end before they were gonna really migrate over. So you're right, we had to finally kind of cut off that life support on that old dashboard, which became a
Yeah.
security risk as well, right? Um,
Well, yeah, and so the whole point of sort of rehashing this is is sort of to talk about what's coming, and you just mentioned it, which was security,
right.
because the old Pro dashboard was a security risk. But I wanted to make the point that we're trying to be thoughtful about it. We're trying to ease people into it, and strike a balance between uh, being secure and making sure that the data is protected, but also not being rude about it, and
Dropping the
making
hammer.
everybody. Yeah, exactly. So sort of, I don't know, the velvet hammer. But as product people, it's our job to understand what the challenges are for agents and brokers out there, agents, brokers, office assistants,
Mhm.
and try to introduce new features that can help people do their jobs better, and in doing that, introduce them in a way that doesn't disrupt their process too much unless it's absolutely necessary. But in the end, makes them either able to do their jobs better, faster, um, better, faster, stronger than how they were doing it
Right,
previously.
right. Because yeah, like you said, there's that balance between inconvenience and security, right?
Yeah.
And I think maybe we get a little lucky because nowadays it seems like we're all familiar with a lot of the security measures that it's in our everyday lives, right? Uh,
Yeah, so what we're talking about introducing in 2026 is what's known as multi-factor authentication. Sometimes it's called two-factor authentication. I think most of us know it as we log in and then the bank says we've sent a code to your phone, and you go to your phone and you see that the 6-digit number or whatever it happens to be, and you type that in, and then you're in, and that really validates that it's you that's logging in. And it's important because I don't know if it's widely known, but one of the reasons why we had everybody change their password in the middle of summer was because we had, I think it was 8 agents where their passwords were hacked, and we had bad actors
right.
logging into the system as those agents, and obviously there's all kinds of horrible things that could happen. Luckily, nothing too horrible happened. What what was happening was the bad actors were logging in as these agents and sending emails through Matrix, because Matrix allows you to send emails out through
Sure.
the system. And this is sort of how devious these bad actors are. They realize if it gets sent through Matrix, there's this credibility that comes along because Matrix sends so many
Right. People will
emails.
open it.
Is people will open it, and it doesn't get flagged as a bad, and so these bad actors were sending out emails that had nothing to do with real estate, but we're trying to get people to click on links, and then they would capture that person's. So anyhow, the long story short, we were able to shut that down really quickly, in part because the Matrix vendor, was super good about telling us, "Hey, these accounts are compromised." One of the ways that they knew those accounts were compromised is because the people were logging in from, I want to say it was Lydia, um, and we felt pretty confident that we probably didn't have 8 agents that were vacationing in Libya and logging into the system. Um,
Right.
so anyhow, again, long story, but I want people to understand that these security steps that we need to take are for good reason.
Right.
And there really are bad things happening. Just another thing. I'm not sure if people were aware of it, but our neighbor to the north, the San Francisco Association of Realtors, they use a system from a company called Rapatoni. And 2 years ago, Rapatoni got hit with a cybersecurity attack, and they were ransomed. And the San Francisco Association of Realtors entire system
Yeah.
was shut down for, I think, 2 weeks.
God.
So imagine not being able to transact any business for 2 weeks through the system. Not something we want to. That's like my worst nightmare, and not
Yeah, I
something
think
we
you
want
and
to
JVed and
contemplate.
everybody wake up on a Monday morning, and yeah, I know we all do. And can you imagine waking up and all of a sudden you have no access to data, your auto emails, your everything, right,
Yeah,
is just shut down, and you can't get any of it. that was, I think, a bit of a wake up call that because I think it's a bit of it is not, it's not going to happen to me kind of a thing. They're going after the big bankers and
Right.
the big companies, but no, they go after MLSs as well, right? And so when
Well,
that happened,
but real estate is I think, if I put my, you know, bad actor hat on, real estate is a pretty good business to hack into because you have agents that have customers. Customers are used to hearing from their agents. And so, maybe they act as an agent and, tell their customer about an opportunity, or, people are probably going to click on that link. So,
right?
um, yeah,
We've
it,
Yeah, yeah, we've
so
we've done and we've done a lot. We've been doing a lot of stuff with security in terms of videos, and we had Jay on, to talk about password management and because it's all part of the whole equation here.
right.
And not using the same password at your gym as you do as your vital stuff. Just because then also obviously they hack your gym membership, they've got your bank, they've got your, and I think just for convenience, a lot of times I've done it before. I had the same password for like 10 different sites.
Don't do it.
And it's just, yeah, then they get one and all of a sudden, and I tell everybody, I got frauded a couple months back. And it's a scary thing when it happens. And after that, you kind of just every day you wake up, oh God, just did somebody else find a way to get it? And you start questioning, your Amazon purchases and everything, right? So it's
Yeah. Oh,
something that
yeah.
you really need to take seriously. No, Tom, that happened 2 years ago, and then we had this totality, the totality breach. Everyone had to change their passwords. Did that spur this decision to do two-factor coming up, or was that kind of already in the mix?
Well, it so it was already something that we knew we needed to get
Right.
to. And so it was on the roadmap, but we acknowledge, hey, it's an inconvenience, right, to have to do two-factor authentication. So, for as long as we didn't have to inconvenience agents, we weren't going to do it. But I think we have enough evidence now that it's time for us to move to two-factor authentication.
Gotcha.
However, I do. We're still working it out. One of the things that we're discussing is how can we be smart about it. So one of the things that we're talking about is, we probably don't need to have two-factor authentication every single time you log in, right?
Okay, good.
No. Uh, do we need to have it once a day? Do we need to have it once a week, once a month? Those are the kinds of questions that we're asking ourselves. I've seen, and we all use a variety of different sites. I've seen sites where they say, "Hey, do you want me to register this browser for the next 30 days or the next 90 days?" So, if you're using the same laptop and the same browser, the system recognizes that, and then there's no question. If you go to a different browser, or you set up a new machine, then it's like, oh, we don't recognize this device, let's go ahead and register it. So we're looking at how do we do it again so that agents can continue to transact business the way that they've always done, with the least amount of disruption. And at the same time, we can make sure that the system is safe and we don't have bad actors
Gotcha. That balance again that
hacking.
you mentioned, yeah. So
Yeah,
it's not going to be that's a big point. It's not going to be every time you log in, right? So whether
right,
it's once an hour or once a session or whatever,
right.
comes out, but it won't be every single time, which I'm sure is a relief to a lot of agents that might be like, oh,
Right. And there are different things that we maybe want to look at, like, is the agent consistently logging in from the same location? Is the agent, are the logins coming from different spots? So as we've started looking at the data, we've seen agents that log in from their home. It looks like they're living in San Jose, or
mhm.
Campbell or Cupertino, But then we also see logins coming from the Philippines, or logins coming in
Right.
from other offshore places. In a few cases, what this is uh, agents that have like hired assistants,
Sure.
and they're doing password sharing, which is actually not allowed, and not a very good um, uh, security practice. And so we do want to make people aware that if you do have an assistant, there is an assistant account that you can get, and I think there's a nominal fee that you have to pay to have that assistant set up, where they would have their own login and password, and they'd be able to assist you, but we'd be able to track those as separate. So we want to look at things like where people are logging in from, how many sessions they have opened. We think it's reasonable that people can be working on their desktop at their home. They can have a session on their phone or their iPad, maybe their laptop. So,
Right.
maybe they've got three simultaneous sessions, but, when it gets to like four or five simultaneous sessions, do we then, pop up a message that says, too many simultaneous sessions, we're going to close down one of the sessions. So we're looking at that as different ways to again mitigate any potential security risk that we might have.
Gotcha. So we got two factor. I saw something. Are we also going to introduce? This might be early in the works. So, but the captcha. I'm saying everyone sees the captcha. A lot of times we
So
have to click on a thing or two to say, hey, make sure you're not a computer. It's like a Turing
yeah,
test. Uh,
right. To Turing test to tell computers and humans apart.
right.
That's the cha part. Yeah. Um, so we are don't have any specific plans. However, Matrix, our vendor,
Hmm.
is planning on putting CAPTCHA in place anytime that you send an email manually from the system, not for auto emails. Auto emails that you set up and go to your clients, there's no issue. But if you're doing a manual email, because that's how these bad actors that I talked about earlier were accessing the system, then it will ask you to do a CAPTCHA, and that's because those bad actors were essentially using bots.
Hmm.
It wasn't a human being that was
Right.
sending these emails.
Enter.
They, yeah, they had a script that was running and sending out, these emails by the, hundreds and thousands. So
Gosh.
they are implementing a CAPTCHA that will pop up, and it's the same thing that you've seen before. Identify the bicycles, or the
Yeah, click on the clocks or the buses
yes,
or um
exactly.
whatever it is. And I didn't know I never knew I realized what that stood for, CAPTCHA. So
Yes,
yeah, that makes sense. Computer, human, the CAPTCHA. Okay. I was
yeah,
wondered. Good to
yeah.
know.
And again, one of the things that we've clarified with Matrix is, if you are sending an auto email, and you do the CAPTCHA test, that starts a 1 hour timer, and then for the next hour, you'll never have to do another CAPTCHA. So
Gotcha.
it's once an hour, and I I think again that sort of meets the, it's an inconvenience, but it's a hopefully a pretty minor one, and then you can go about and do your work, because
Gotcha.
you're probably, if you're sending manual emails, you know you may send multiple ones at a same time, so you just have to do
Okay.
capture once. You don't have to do it every single time.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah, and uh yeah, I think Shakira said, please explain capture. Yeah, it's
Oh,
just how would you
captcha.
CAPTCHA, yeah.
Yeah,
It's that little box, right, that pops up on your screen, and it has about what, 9 boxes of
nine
photos,
boxes. Yep.
and it says, it says choose, click only on the ones that have a clock on it, or a bus or a motorcycle, and then
Right.
it's the way the computer can tell you're not a bot, right, and you're an actual human trying to go ahead and access, whatever you're doing. So
Right.
that's
Yeah, it's
yeah.
one of those things that computers or artificial intelligence still can't figure out.
Right, right. So, well,
So
excellent. So Tom, moving away from maybe the security point, I think a
yeah.
lot of people are, hey, what also is going on? What do we got planned for 2026, moving forward here?
Well, and the other buzzword in the industry today is artificial intelligence, and we keep hearing about it. Realtor.com just said that for consumers that are looking for a home or researching the market, 82% of them at some point in their search use artificial intelligence.
Wow.
So you know that's not to say 82% are only using artificial intelligence, but I think at some point they're going to one of these chatbots, and you can do it today, and type in their search parameters, or maybe they want information on a neighborhood.
Mm.
82%. Interesting point, though, is that still, um, you know, most consumers go to actual human realtors, right?
Right,
So
right.
most stuff is or the most trusted source is still realtors. Um, but the next information source is AI, according to this Realtor.com article. I can put the article in the chat if that would be helpful.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
that's because yeah, I mean, in terms of AI, I've always looked at it in a way that we can save time, use it for we
yeah,
have it in our remarks, but not necessarily just I would never say just use whatever AI spits out, but you could obviously maybe you just need a little push to kind of and it gives you an idea or two or maybe a sentence or two, and then make it
that's
your
right.
own, right? That's really the
Yep,
point of it. I'm sure over the next couple of years it'll grow and it'll grow. But we're always looking. That's one thing we get a lot when I'm out in the field. Agents are always saying, hey, can you speed up the listing process? It takes too long, that
right.
kind of a thing. And so we add these things like Smart Draft, right? Um,
Yes,
which is actually really nice. I guess Smart Draft what draws from not only public records, but if it's ever been listed before, that agent
correct.
information, right?
Yeah, and it's just trying to be smart about populating the listing using existing data, and the agent always has full control. Though anything that's populated by Smart Draft is highlighted in yellow, and if you don't think it's accurate anymore, the bathroom's been upgraded in some way, you can overwrite any piece of it, but it's there to help you get started. Another thing is, I know one of the least favorite things for many agents is writing that public facing property description.
Sure.
And I remember one agent was like, "Oh man, they always hope that that property has been listed before, so they can see
Give
what
it a little,
the public remarks were like
sure.
before, and sort of leverage that." Well, now you can use AI. So within listing management, there's a button that says, write a property description, and that it has AI look at all of the dimensions of the property and write up a description for you.
Right. And you can
And
even
we're
click it twice, right? So if you don't
you,
like what it
you
spits out, you can even say, hey, give me another version, right? It's kind of nice.
exactly. You can click it twice. You can copy it and edit it. You can copy it and put it into an AI chatbot and say, well, I also want you to mention
Right.
the fact that it's got incredible views, or you can tell it what else to highlight. And so we're continually looking at ways to leverage AI to make it easier for our agents. Another thing is we have a disclosures package,
Right.
Aculous
Oculus.
Disclosures. Yeah, free for everyone to use. And we plan to implement an AI query so that as a buyer or a buyer's agent, I can say, look, I don't have time to read all of these documents, but AI, tell me what are the top 10 things that I as a buyer should be concerned about when I'm considering a purchase of this property. And it will scan the documents and bring back those items. Or you can ask, look, I just want to skip to what are the electrical issues, what's the condition of the roof. And
Mm.
so you can just ask questions and get answers that way.
Gotcha. And you can always, one option is you can always not use it, in terms of remarks and things like that. If you don't want to, you can just write your remarks. So for those that, don't
Right.
want to use it, hey, it's there for you. I think it's good to have an option. And, one way I always position is, a lot of times if you're not using it or comfortable with it, it's a good chance your competitor might be using it. And so it's just kind of that way that in life that you kind of got to use it a little bit at least. I think nowadays can't get around it.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
just everywhere.
Another area where AI is making inroads is virtual staging.
Okay.
So you have a vacant home, or maybe the home's not vacant. Maybe it's completely furnished, but you want to be able to show what the home could look like. There are tools, AI-based tools, that will take a photo and reimagine the room. In fact, I think Redfin
Yeah.
has this already available on their website, and we're looking at similar technology. Very important that if you do reimagine a room, that it's noted that this is
Yeah, I was about to say that's that's
uh,
on frontier here. You
right.
better make sure you disclose that that's not what's actually right.
Yes.
It's a
So
repurpose.
yeah, so that's one reason why it's not available now, because we're still working through some of those items, because uh, you know it, we always want to make sure that the listing is reflecting a fair and accurate depiction of the property. And
Right.
if it's not, that it's clearly
I know
listed
Robert,
that way.
Robert had showed me that a while back when it was, I think Redfin had, tested it out in a few markets. And, I was kind of blown away because this is over a year when we showed him, but I'm sure they've made, change to it. But it was literally like a slider. You could just slide it across and all the
Yeah.
like cabinets would be like updated to like, the fridge updated, everything, it updated, modernized it. And, I just remember talking to Robert and I was like, is this going to be, how do you handle this from a rule standpoint and a lot of different things go into that, right?
Well, and so that's on the consumer side. So
Right.
the listing is uploaded, the photos are uploaded, and the photos are all fair, accurate, not changed in any way. But then the consumer, as they're contemplating, oh, maybe I want to put an offer in on this home, they can say, but I don't really like the kitchen. Maybe, what would it look like if I wanted to update the kitchen? And they can do it for themselves. It's not, and
Right.
I think that's an okay
As long as they
way to
disclose
do
it
it.
and say, hey,
Yes,
that's
yeah, but I think for a listing to have photos uploaded that's like, well, it's not really the kitchen, but it's what the kitchen could be, is not fair and accurate, and not something be able to support.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And just to let everybody know, yeah, we are recording this, so we will put this back on YouTube afterward. A lot of questions on if we can listen to it again, some parts of it. Yeah, we recorded it. It'll be up on YouTube in a day or two, just to let everyone know. But keep putting your questions in there for Tom at the end. And Tom, you're the director, right, of development there. In terms of when you
Product
guys, oh,
management.
sorry, product management, when
Yeah.
just like process wise, when we come up with like AI or these different things, to implement, does this go? I mean, does Dave Wetzel, our CEO, president, make the call? Does it go through our board? Or, how does that whole kind of come together a lot of times?
It depends on what the change is.
Mhm.
So if we're making a change that requires board approval, it has to go up
Mm.
to the board. Um, Dave is our CEO, and I don't think we pass every single change through Dave, but every I think it's just good practice. Don't surprise the CEO.
Sure.
So he may not uh, uh, he may not need to provide his specific approval, but we always try to
And
keep
I mean,
people
part of the
informed.
reason I wanted to mention this is just because input is such a big part of how these
Yes,
changes come about, right? With our
absolutely.
dashboard, with anything, it often comes from our community and then goes into whatever, process and up the chain of command and all that. But it really does start right with agents, saying, "Hey, we'd like to see this or can improve upon this," right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, uh, one of the things that is so important to me is getting agent feedback, and whether that's through the what we call the pulse of the customer survey, whether it's through the feedback form, whether it's through hello at MLSlistings.com. We do read that feedback, and
Mm.
we're not always able to
Sure.
act on the feedback, but understanding what the struggles are, what the challenges are, or what the opportunities are is really important for us.
Yeah,
And so, yeah,
we've talked about that in
I
the past a lot too, where because we're lucky enough to have a great engineering team, some things we can in-house do and we can kind of do it quicker, right? Having that ability. There's some things like, when you're doing matrix and you're doing totality, we're at the mercy of a vendor, right? Um,
yeah.
certain
So
time frames.
Exactly. Yeah. So, our listing input system is developed internally, but the search for properties, so Matrix, Paragon, Realist, are all provided to us by a vendor, and we have to work with them. And Matrix has, I think, 350 MLSs, and so we're one of those MLSs, and it sometimes takes a while for our requests to pop up to the top of the list.
Gotcha,
Um,
gotcha. Speaking of
yeah.
totality, I know we've got, I know it's not here yet, but I'm looking forward to, we got some brand new CMAs they're going to be
Yes.
rolling out, and that probably be what,
Be,
January Q1.
yeah. I was going to say that's for new CMAs for the new year. Yes.
That's exciting.
And I'm really excited. They're finally fixing the speed bar. So the speed bar on top, has never been very good about being able to type in an address
Right.
and go to that listing. And so they say they're finally
They're fixing the
fixing
speed
that.
bar, huh? Okay, because
Yeah.
I'm always hesitant to use it, especially if
Well,
I'm in a training or wherever. And I can imagine, if you're in front of a client, you really don't want to use it because it was so wonky. Sometimes it would work, and sometimes and you didn't really know the parameters of what you could and couldn't put in.
right. There
Uh,
was like this secret language that you had to learn to use the speed bar, and yeah, it was frustrating for a lot of people, myself included, when I first had to deal with it. And yeah, I think you're right. Many people don't use it,
Yeah, and for those
but
wondering, that's the bar right at the top, right? When you're in Magic Search
yes,
there, that big, which maybe a lot of you don't use, maybe you've used it, had frustration and never used it again, but good to hear that they're gonna,
yeah.
take a look at that.
Starting next year, you should be able to use it, and it hopefully it should work the way you expect it to.
Right, right. And CMA wise, I've been asking for new CMAs for a long time because I mean I love our
Yeah,
quick CMA, but I'll be honest, our full CMA needed totality, they needed to do a facelift on that old CMA
yeah,
and get it up to 2025, 2026 level.
yeah.
Which they've done from what I've seen. Well, I've only seen a little bit of it, but it looks way better than what because I was been around. The one they've been using has been around a long time. So
Right.
it's been nice to have. So let's see. So we covered kind of 2025 and look at 2026. Did we miss anything, Tom? Um,
No, I don't think so. Those were the
Kind
big
of the main
things that
points there.
I wanted to mention. You know, we're constantly looking at ways to improve the experience.
Yeah.
So we're looking at working with different vendors. I know, for instance, I've heard, you know, agent safety tools are very important to agents. And so
Oh, do you
we,
mean like kind of like a security, like in terms of I'm going alone to a open house and I
right.
could I've seen that before maybe once like I saw it a few years ago. I think one of the apps used to have it and it was pretty neat. Um,
There are different apps, and some of them are quite expensive, and
mhm.
some of them are less expensive, but you know maybe don't do quite as much. Um, and so we're going through a process of evaluating them, and you know seeing what we can what kind of a deal we can get for our subscribers, for
Gotcha.
our agents. Yeah,
So awesome. Last chance if anybody has anything, you can put in the chat or come off mute if you have a question. Tom, if let's say an agent wants to, hey, I've got an idea you guys could do, Ben, we talk about that, feedback.
yeah.
They can send it to I know prodev at MLSlistings.com. Is there any other is it
Hello at
hello at
MLSlistings.com
Okay.
is, I
One
think.
of the two, we'll make sure it gets,
Yeah,
you can always send if you're used to sending it to ProDev at
yeah,
MLS listing, send it to ProDev. We'll make sure Tom and his group gets it. We're always, like I said, looking for feedback, and looking ways to improve the
yeah.
systems and that's part of it. So Tom, I want to thank you for coming on today.
You bet.
And you got to
My
close out the
pleasure.
year with Tom here. Fantastic job. We're
All
gonna be
right.
back in January doing more coffee talks and so keep an eye out for everything. We're going to post this video. We'll have it on the Apple side of the world if podcast is your thing and want to kind of just, when you're driving to an open house, it's great. Maybe you just want to listen to something. But of course, YouTube as well. We have everything on there. So if you want to watch that, that'll be up. Fernando's going to get it up there in a day or two. So we'll have it up there and I'm sure we'll comment out, make sure everybody has the link. So thanks everybody for attending. Holiday season up ahead. So have a great Thanksgiving. If I don't see you, have a great Christmas and all
All
that
right.
good stuff. So thanks everybody for attending. Really appreciate it.
Make sure to check out our pro support page for additional videos on a full range of topics. And don't forget to click that subscribe button on our MLS Listings YouTube page.